worked for Butler Brothers warehouse.
Oh.
Butler Brothers.
And then, what who did you live with?
I lived in a boarding house with a lady named Mrs. White.
In her house?
Yeah.
Now can you tell me like the story of starting living like in Ireland for
23 years.
Like how it was in Ireland and like the trip over here and then what happened? What was the change from?
The change was
like. Tell me just the story of...
Well, when I left Ireland, well, I was quite an adventurous young man. Came on, it was pretty hard to find work. The first job I got was what I told you, Butler's brother. And I lived with my brother in the boarding house, Eddie. And after I got laid off in I went to Colgate Company for a few months. And after things got slow, I got another job with the Standard Oil Company. And there I went to work in the machine shop. And from there on, I worked for about 6 years there, and finally, when the war started, well, I worked there with my brother in the garage for 2 years, I think it was. I worked in New York in the butter and cheese market until after the crash of 1929, and I got laid off, and that's when I went to work for my brother after the crash. And then I went back to the Standard Oil again. I worked there for 6 years until I was laid off. Then I went to work for the shipyard in Carney for about 18 months, and I quit there and went to the Brooklyn Navy Yard and worked there during the war until about a year after the war was over. And I got laid off there. I went to work for Colgate's as a machinist. So I worked there for 20 years until I got retired at 65. And now I'm here.
How did you meet Nana?
Nana and I met at a dance in New York, a dance hall. And I liked her looks and the way she danced. Took her home and got her phone number and kept on making dates until we got well acquainted. After a certain time, we got married.
Isn't it? Didn't you live only a few miles in Ireland? Didn't you live only a few miles away from her?
About 18 miles.
You didn't even know each other, and then you met.
I did see her once with her sisters, going to the stores in Craig's, but I didn't know that I'd ever see her again, and I didn't even take, no, I was only a kid at the time.
Mhm. And then you met her over here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we've been together ever since.
Mhm.
That's 52 years ago since we got married.
I thought it was 51.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, what was it like in Ireland? I mean,
Well, in Ireland before I left,
yeah.
it was nice. I had a good time. Had went to lots of dances and sports. I love to hurl. That's not jumping hurdles. That's just a game of an Irish game they call hurling, and I was good at that. When I came out here, we had a team in Jersey City that beat the best teams in New York. And after I got married, I quit. I didn't hurl anymore. So I just worked, went out, had our children, and took them out on weekend, up to the lakes, down the shore, out for rides on a Sunday. And we had a real good time.
What did you,
Lots of parties for the kids when they grew up.
if you, like, if you had a choice, would you go back and live in Ireland, or would you stay here?
Excuse me. I wouldn't mind living in Ireland. It's nice, beautiful country.
Would you rather stay
But
here?
I'd rather stay here because the kids are here. If the kids weren't here, I would just as well live in Ireland.
Mhm.
So I have made about 7 trips back since 1932. I was over there in 1932, and then we went back. I think 7 or 8 trips since. Last year I was back for 3 weeks in August. My brother died, and Mom was supposed to come over, but she didn't feel good, so I came back home, back to the United States. And now I'm here.
Did what year did you leave for for America? What year was it?
Did I come out here?
Yeah, did you start?
In
Yeah.
1924. October the 9th. I landed in Hoboken. October the 4th. Ooh. And we've been doing lots of traveling. We were in Hawaii for our, I think it was our 25th or 30th anniversary. And we've been in Vermont, down to south as far as North Carolina, out in Michigan, Illinois, Detroit. We've been doing lots of traveling ever since. We've been here now in California for I think it's 12 years since we first came out here. We've been here every winter since.
Mhm. What was in Ireland? What was it like when you were a boy? What kind of errands did you do, and did you go to school, or
I went to grammar school,
what was?
national school they called it.
Mhm.
And I went there until I was old enough to work in my father's farm. I loved horses. We used to have young horses, and I'd ride them. And before, the first time,
Mhm.
we had cattle and sheep and pigs and ducks and geese, hens and chicken, and everything that goes with the farm. I love plant oats and potatoes and rye and cut turf and save it. Cut the hay and oats in autumn. And we had lots of, then in the winter there wasn't much doing on the farm, so we'd have a nice time for ourselves. In the winter evenings we'd gather in a crowd and tell jokes, have fun, and go to dances on weekends. Lots of fun. Ride bicycles. I was a good bicycle rider. And I was a good foot runner when I first was a kid. I won my first race when I was 11 years old, 220-yard race. And the next year I won first again in another 220-yard race. And after that, then I went out on the bicycle. I won a couple of races on the bicycle. But then the trouble with the black and tans in Ireland, we couldn't have any sports. They outlawed it. And we couldn't have any dances. We couldn't have any gathering at all. It was a martial law or whatever you called it at the time, I forget. But until we got our freedom at 1922, I think it was.
Why did they take those things away from you?
Because the English didn't want us to gather in crowds. They didn't want any more than 4 people at a time together.
Oh.
It was like curfew on. And it was real hard times then. Black and tans was tough. So from 1916 to 1920 it was real bad. But after we got the Free State, things started to get better. I was only there for 2 years after they got it and they came out here.
It's the black and tans?
Black and tans. They call them black and tans because the police used to wear black, dark blue color.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have enough of uniforms to put them in police coats, so they gave them a khaki pants and a black hat.
Mm.
And they called it a black and tan. They put the tan pants, maybe a black jacket, a dark blue jacket, as we called it black, and a tan pants, and that's why they called them the black and tan.
Mm.
But they were, in fact, some of them was criminals that they let out of jail and send them over to Ireland to do what they felt like, keep the Irish down.
Mm.
And they were really bad. So then when we got the Free State, I was in the volunteers before that, and we voted for the Free State. So I went in the army for 9 months until they made an agreement, had a truce, and I got out and back home.
Oh yeah. Did your like where did your like great great grandparents come from or something?
Well, who?
Did they always come from Ireland? Did all your other relatives come from Ireland?
My father and mother was born in Ireland, born in County Galway.
How about like your great grandmother?
My great grandmother, she was also born in Galway.
So
and my grandfather.
Was anyone in your family born not in Ireland?
No, they were all Irish descendants. The Ryans was my father and the Kellys was my mother. And do you know that there was more Kellys in Washington's army in this revolution than there was of all other countries, nationalities put together?
That was out of your family?
No, well, it was my mother's name was Kelly.
And so those were from your mother's family? Those people were from your mother's family?
Well, they weren't that old, you know. There was none of my, I don't know if there was any of them out here at the time. There was, some of them were out here in St. Louis, but I never met them. I did meet one of their sons. Oh no, that was my father's sister's son. He was in the First World War from St. Louis. He was attached to the Air Force. His name was Lawrence Zimmerman. But he made a visit home to us when he got a furlough. And he went back in and we never saw him since. So my mother's people lived in Philadelphia. I had an uncle there that died since I came out here, I think it was. But I never saw him, never visited him. I never visited any of my cousins here. Some of them were in Boston, some of them were in St. Louis, and some of them in Massachusetts, I think it was. But I never saw any. Only one of their sons during the Second World War came to visit us. His name was Kelly. So I haven't seen him since either. So that's where we got along good. And had a good time. Yeah. So now if you carry any of my old blood, you'll be a good runner too. A good athlete. And my brother Lon, he was a good bicycle rider. My oldest brother Martin, he was a good foot runner and a bicycle rider. And the rest of them were just normal sports. But, well, see, I missed my best years as an athlete during the black and tan time. We couldn't have any sports.
Yes.
So that set me back. Otherwise, I could have won lots of races.
Is that all? Are you done?
Well, I guess that's about the whole story.
Yeah.
That we had got married and had 4 nice boys. And got along very good. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome, honey.